We are going to discussing the chip war between the United States and China. The global competition for advanced semiconductor technology is heating up, and it has significant implication for the technology and defense industries. Before we dive in, if you like, please consider subscribing and give the thumbs up. Thank you. So let's dive in. I want to start with the question, why semiconductor? The simple answer is because every electronic stuff needs many chips, or what we call SoC. And to build these chips need the semiconductor industry, like smartphone products, computers, high-speed computers, household electronics to military equipment. The problem is not every semiconductor companies have the ability to make the latest technology chip. For example, from the rumors on the internet, the next Apple SoC M3 for Apple computer and the next Bionic chip for iPhone will use 3nm fabrication, and Apple relies on TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, to make those chips. It also happened to Nvidia and AMD, which relies on TSMC to build their CPU and GPU. Still, many companies rely on TSMC to build their chips, like Qualcomm for their Snapdragon and MediaTek. Other semiconductor companies that have the ability to create the latest technology like Intel, Samsung, Micron, Broadcom, and still many more. Some companies build CPU, some companies build memory and storage that to be significant components in computing. So in a simple way, not every semiconductor company can make the latest chip technology. Even the company that can make chip with smallest fabrication and latest technology, but the capacity production to create the chip is very limited. The next problem is US and China try to take control and influence those companies. The US is powerful to take number of measures because many semiconductor companies are on the side. The US can control companies through money policies and regulation. The US also invests dozens of billions in the semiconductor industry to secure the supply chain for years to come. The US government created the Chips for America program. The goal of the program is to increase the US competitiveness in global chip market and reduce its dependence on foreign suppliers. On the other hand, China also incessantly builds and develops its own semiconductor industry because China has many tech manufacturing companies that make smartphone, electronics, and other stuff like Acer, Lenovo, Asus, Xiaomi, Huawei, and many more. In a simple way, China is the biggest market that can produce and sell, certainly at an affordable price. So China wants to have its own semiconductor that can make chips to provide for manufacturing companies in its own country. Even many emerging countries import electronics from China because they are affordable and just function. In addition, according to a recent report by research from Gartner, global semiconductor sales are expected to reach $455 billion in 2022, with China accounting for a significant portion of this growth. But in fact, it's not as smooth as that. Recently, US President Joe Biden's administration secured an agreement with Netherlands and Japan to restrict export of some advanced chip-making machinery to China. The agreement aimed to undercut China's ambition to build its own domestic chip capabilities. The companies involved in this restriction are ASML Holding NV from Netherlands, Nikon Corp, and Tokyo Electron Ltd from Japan. ASML is the world's largest supplier of lithography machine used in the chip-making process, has advanced extreme ultraviolet lithography equipment, which costs about $164 million per unit. Due to US pressure, ASML was already prohibited from selling the equipment to Chinese customers, by reason it cannot obtain an export license from the Dutch government due to pressure from the United States. Without this equipment, semiconductor companies find it hard to make the chips with small fabrication because the market always wants a more powerful chip than before, and the market wants a secure supply chain. But ASML's Chief Executive Officer Peter Wenning has warned that the US campaign could have unintended consequences, predicting that China will develop the technology itself instead of importing it. So the US is powerful to control semiconductor companies to secure chip production. However, China has a huge market in its own country and emerging countries, and it will be threatened if China can build its own semiconductor companies and the US doesn't want it. But it's not just about trending anymore. It becomes beyond that. Many considerations of why the US pressure semiconductor companies. According to The Verge, the US has long said its restriction will prevent China from developing semiconductors for military application including supercomputer, nuclear weapons modeling, and hypersonic weapons. And supercomputers have become significantly important to developing all of the innovation. Another example like now, every big company competes to develop artificial intelligence to solve big problems. So when a country can establish its own chip, it will develop its own computer and own artificial intelligence. And last but not least, to secure the supply chain for many companies to keep producing electronic like smartphone, computers, laptop, appliance, and many more. The conclusion is that the US wants to control the supply chain of the chip, and China has a huge market that makes it confident in building a semiconductor company and utilizing its chip for products in the country from upstream to downstream. So if you like, don't forget to subscribe and give the thumbs up like. And see you in the next video.